When I went to university my first year, I did not know what to expect. When looking for information, there's not a lot that you can find. So I hope to answer some of the questions that you have left in the comments on my previous video before, and some of the questions that I personally had going into my first year. I know that starting university for some of you can be scary, but it's actually quite similar to high school. Some of the questions that I got: how is the student workload and the quality of the content in the lectures? So the student workload is definitely much higher than it would be in high school, especially if you're not an international student, for example. Here in Canada, there's actually not a lot of homework and other activities that you're supposed to do outside of school. But if you're an international student like me, for example, I studied in Ukraine up to grade 6. I know what to expect there. It's much heavier with the course load and there's more homework. So I think if you're an international student, you're a little bit more well prepared for the first year. I don't think it's that overwhelming if you pace yourself and space everything accordingly. It can be very easy to think that you know a lot right away. I would highly advise that you right away start doing work and spacing yourself. Otherwise, you're going to have not a great time having a lot of weekends where you just do work for 10 hours straight, 15 hours straight, sometimes even 20 hours straight. Especially if you're in computing science like I was and in honors, it can be overwhelming if you don't pace yourself accordingly. So second question is, how soon can you start part-time work and how much can you expect from it? If you think everything is going fine and if you follow the first tip and you spaced yourself accordingly and you're not overwhelmed with classes, I think you should be able to start halfway through the first semester, maybe at the end of the first semester. I would say give yourself about a semester. So give yourself a whole first semester to understand your specific program workload and how much you can handle yourself, and go from there. And I think you could probably do like 10 to 15 hours a week without too much trouble. 10 to 15 hours is a realistic goal. How much can you expect from that? So the minimum wage in Alberta is $15 if you're over 18. And so if you work 10 hours a week, you could get $150 before tax. So in a month, that's $600. Let's say with tax, maybe like $550. That's pretty decent amount of money. You could do a lot with that. For example, you could work 2 months and buy yourself a whole laptop, like brand new, over $1,000 easily. You know, if you're looking for money to pay for school, you could put it towards that, or you could put it towards personal expenses like, you know, gadgets, you know, clothing, stuff like that. If you can work part-time work, it will help you, you know, even covering expenses such as food. If you're living off campus, that will help you greatly. I personally didn't even work in my first year. I am planning to work second year, but you know, it depends on the person, depends on your program, depends on how much workload and how prepared you are for that. The third question I have is, what is the campus life like and how are the residencies and food provided? So there's a lot of events that actually happen on campus, but to be honest, I didn't attend almost anything in my first year. It's much more suited if you actually live on residency at the campus because it's much easier for you to attend events. I would say especially in the first couple of weeks where it's like introduction and the students are just getting going, you know, there's a lot of fun stuff, especially if you're over 18. I think there's like some even drinking events or something like that if you're into that. Some shows. There's lots of events if you know, just get into it, look at it. UofA usually sends you emails and stuff warning you in ahead. The residencies are okay. I've only been to one. My friend Raj, he lived at a Lister, which is the residency usually occupied by first year students. It's quite big. It's kind of divided into like 4 or 5 sections, I believe. Definitely not the best. I think if you were to get a house, it would be much nicer. But I think for like international students especially, there's not a lot of options, for example, because if you were to get a house, a single house is very expensive, much more expensive than residency would be. And getting a house with multiple people would require you having multiple friends that either are from your place that are going to U of A to study as well, or that you know from somewhere else and you can rely on them to rent the house with you and sign all the documents. And you know, usually renting would be for at least a year. And the food is actually okay, it's pretty good. Raj invited me to go with him to, you know, the Lister food. It's basically a buffet, but it was quite nice. I ate there like a couple times. It's pretty good. They cook usually some kind of like noodles or some like cold cereals and with meat and stuff that you can serve yourselves. There's almost always pizza. There's a sandwich station and you can actually request that they will make you a sub or a sandwich. They make great wraps. I've tried with like chicken and bacon. There's options for people that, don't eat meat. For example, Raj doesn't eat beef, so there's options for him almost always like that. Lots of fruit, drink fountain, juices, milk, cereals. I think there was pancakes. It could get tiring over, 8 month eating kind of the same stuff, but they do switch it up. But I would say it's pretty good. If you like eating, there's lots of food for you. Next question is, are you able to get quality guidance from staff or faculty members? And the answer is yes. Right away, especially if you're in science faculty, I know that we have science faculty like mentors. So it's basically the first day that you came to orientation, you had two second-year students walk with you and they showed you the campus. And you could also, get their phone number, get their contacts, or get contacts of other people, sometimes even higher than second year, online on the UofA website as under the, science mentor program. Basically what happens is they can meet with you a few times a year. You can, talk to them, ask them questions. They could look at your courses, Basically, it's just more experienced students that already know what's happening, and they can take a look at what's going on with you, answer some of your questions, help you out a little bit. So there's definitely guidance that you can get. I'm not sure about like professors and stuff, but you could definitely ask. They're quite nice. Me and Raj asked a couple times in the year our computing science professor about our courses selection and what we can do for courses like math and some of the CS courses and what to expect for second year. And he was extremely nice. He always answered our questions to help us out. And if they can't directly answer your question, they will always send you to someone who can. Fifth question is, what is the typical cost of living? So for me, for renting a house, I rented with 4 friends. It was a very nice house, so it was more expensive than usual. The rent was $610 each. We had utilities on top of that, and plus food. So I would say monthly it was around $1,000, so maybe $700 or so for the house with utilities, and then $200-300 on food and miscellaneous expenses. It can definitely be less than that. You can find definitely a fine suitable house for like 400-500, probably 500 at the average, 500-600 like that. So you can cut down the expenses also depending on how you eat, how you budget, how much you go out, what other expenses you have. You can budget accordingly, so you can definitely reduce that. On campus, I think it's like 5,000 or 6,000 per semester. With the housing and the meal plan, you can definitely go on the UofA website and check it out for yourself and see the cost. And it might also depend on whether you are international or not, so that would also be very different. But if you're getting a house, then it obviously doesn't matter. It would probably be a little bit harder with like signing the papers and stuff like that if you're international or coming over here right away into the house compared to the UofA providing housing for you. But I think it's still possible if you really wanted to. Sixth question is what to keep in mind when coming to Canada. That's a pretty hard question to answer. I personally, when I came to Canada, I haven't been really anywhere else internationally. I had a very low level of English, so it was hard for me. Most international students who come here, they have an excellent level of English that is at least the same, if not greater, than some people who live here in Canada. I don't think they have anything to worry about. Most of the international students that I've met they're great people. They speak great. There's absolutely no problem in communicating with them. The biggest surprise for most of them was the fact that it's cold, obviously. It can get cold somewhere mid-fall, and it could stay cold pretty much all the way up till the summer. Winters can get up to -40, so definitely pack some warm clothing with you. Just be prepared to the fact that weather changes, especially in Alberta. Weather changes are very constant, so you could go from, very warm +15 to like -10 instantly, and the next day could be -20 up to -40, stuff like that. In terms of like what to expect and surprises, I really don't know. I mean, all the people here are pretty nice. You can always ask for help, especially at the university. The professors are always there for you. Mentors are always there for you. Other students are super friendly, especially if it's your first year, your first day, you just walk into a random class. Just sit beside a random person that you don't know, say hi, get their phone number. Everyone is willing to be, friends. No one really has connections on the first day. Everyone is in random classes. Just say hi, just talk to people. Number 7, what are some unexpected things to deal with in university? I think mostly not expecting the workload. So if you're unprepared for the workload, that can really hit you, especially if you think you're doing great and then later find out there's actually a lot more work. I would recommend getting like a book or something on your phone, like notes, and write down everything that you have to do. So I would highly recommend writing stuff to not forget. Other unexpected things where, that the classes are pretty fast. 15-minute lecture might sound long, but it can go by pretty quick. 3-hour classes, on the other hand, are way longer than what it sounds like. 3 hours already sounds pretty long. It feels more like 4, maybe even 5. It depends. In my 3-hour classes, we kind of got breaks sometimes, like 10-15-minute breaks, just to relax a little bit. Those classes are pretty long. Also, morning classes are quite hard. I wouldn't recommend getting a lot of morning classes. You might think that you're able to wake up and get ready and go for an 8 a.m. For example, waking up for an 8 a.m. requires actually getting up at 6 a.m. If you are like me and living off campus. I would have to get up at 6 a.m. or 6:30 at latest, shower, eat, and then be ready at the bus station by 7:10. And in the winter, that's pitch black. You can't see anything. You're walking out. There's absolute darkness outside. And pretty cold sometimes too, right? So you go to the bus station, get to the university maybe like 7:50, 7:45, and then you're ready for class. If it's mandatory classes that you can't switch, obviously you don't have any options. If you're able to put a class at 10 or 12 that, fits nicely with your other classes compared to 8, I would recommend doing that instead. Are there any hidden expenses, and is $40,000 a good estimate for international students for the first year? In terms of any hidden expenses, no, not really. You might need, extra school supplies and stuff like that, maybe laptop, but I assume most of you have laptops, and I would recommend having a decent laptop that you're not lagging behind in university. It will be very useful for you. I would probably bring it almost every day. In terms of other expenses, there's not much. You could even opt out of the student healthcare plan, like dental and general healthcare plan, if you already have one. For international students, I probably wouldn't recommend that, but for example, if you're from Canada, and like my dad has healthcare coverage for the whole family, so I could opt out and save some money from that. So there's not a lot of expenses that are not shown. And in fact, I would even say you don't even have to spend that much money on books. A lot of the times you see in the tuition, they say like books will cost you like $1,200. That's probably not even going to be close. You're not going to spend that much money in books. A lot of the courses don't even have books. Like, for example, I was in computing science courses. The 2 classes that did not require a book, we just had to buy an Arduino kit that was like around $100, but split between 2 semesters, that's only $50. That's quite cheap. And then, for example, my first semester honors math class, we didn't have a book at all. But other than that, there's like nothing, that's huge in terms of expenses. I would say your books are probably going to cost you half the amount that they say on there. When you register in your courses fully, they will give you a catalog of all the books. Do not buy the books right away. Definitely wait. I bought my chemistry book before the university even started. Ended up not needing it at all. I pretty much never opened it, maybe like to study the final just a little bit. So that was a $150 book that I could have just not bought. So a lot of the times professors will tell you if they will use it, it will be mandatory, or if they will use it for extra homework and stuff like that. For example, my second semester calculus class, we needed a calculus book, never used that book either. So a lot of the times you will just be able to save money on the books. And is $40,000 good enough for tuition for first year international? I would not be able to tell you fully, but from what I know, I asked my friend Raj, and he said international tuition costed him $24,000 for the computing science honors program. I would imagine it's probably similar to other classes. So that was just the tuition, and then plus the living expense, which I'm not sure what he spent, but I would say $40,000 is probably good. It's definitely a lot more for international students. For example, for me, the tuition was closer to $7,000, and we only stayed for 8 or 9 months, I think, because of the virus situation, and we moved back home. But if I lived there for a year, about $12,000 for the living, $7,000 for the tuition, plus, maybe miscellaneous expenses, $20,000 for Canadian students and $40,000 for international. That's probably pretty close. But again, I can't tell you for sure. From the first year, you will definitely know what to expect further on. So now that I've gone through the questions that I've had people ask me, I'm just going to go through general things that I personally think are kind of important to know in the first year. Number 1 is definitely manage your workload, start doing work in advance. If you don't, you're gonna fall behind. You're gonna have long days of complete work where you're just gonna hate your life. Sometimes it's much harder just to start doing the work than the actual work is. So just start and it will definitely help you out. Second thing, definitely keep active, keep doing something. Maybe join a club, maybe do some sports, maybe go to the gym. UofA has a fantastic gym. Amazing equipment, lots of space, never lines. You can go at least once a week, twice a week. Just get some activity in. It will keep you healthy. It will keep you mentally going. Also, physical exercise helps you think better. I definitely slacked off and kind of felt bad, and my energy levels were all around throughout the day. I think if I kept active, I would have felt much better. Third thing to know, don't forget to eat. I know it sounds crazy, but when you're in university and sometimes you're not even doing work, but you're just so mentally overwhelmed thinking about what you're going to be doing the next day. When I was talking to one of the science mentors at the beginning of the year, she told me that she was so scared and so busy the first month of the university that a lot of the times she just forgot to eat. She would skip a lot of meals. Don't forget to eat. I would definitely recommend getting breakfast in. Do not skip that. It will help you out because it's much harder to focus on lectures when you're sitting there and your stomach is just killing you. Like, you can't focus on anything else. Also, get a water bottle, drink water. Having dehydration will definitely make you feel much worse, and sometimes you won't even know why you can't focus on things. Eat, drink water, take care of yourself, not just focus on your education. Fourth tip is don't overstress. I think a lot of people, including myself, overstress extremely during the first year on what to expect, how things will be. It will be fine. Everything will be fine. Even if you make small mistakes, everything will be good. You will find great people, great friends, especially, first semester. Definitely just say hi to lots of people, make new connections, make new friends, make new relationships. You're gonna have a good circle of people. There's gonna be support for you. There's always help on campus. Don't stress about it too much, and you're gonna go through your first year just fine. Definitely study for the finals. Definitely don't underestimate the finals. If you do all of this, you will get through your first semester just fine, and then when you do that, you will know exactly what to expect for second semester, and then you can manage it from there. For example, if you study too much first semester, which is definitely possible, maybe study a little bit less second semester. If you didn't study enough, study a little bit more. If you weren't active enough, get more active. If you spend too much time on other stuff, cut down your other activities. So guys, I hope that helps you with your first year, and I hope this video gave you some insight into what to look for in the first year and how to prepare yourself. And I hope that I was able to answer some of the questions that you were having. If you have any more questions, definitely leave them down in the comments below. If you have anything that I missed at all, any new questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you see something that is already posted and you have the same question, upvote that comment. I will make sure to get back to everybody that I see. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you will get through your first year without troubles. Good luck.